The sky over was unlike anything Ward had ever seen. It was a deep shade of violet, streaked with gold, as if the sun itself had been painted by an artist who loved the strange and beautiful. The shook slightly as it landed on the soft, glowing grass, stepped out feeling the warmth under his boots. Around him, his fellow soldiers spread out, scanning the alien forest. Everything felt alive, the trees shimmered faintly, and the air carried a hum that made his skin tingle. It was a dangerous world. Its people were a proud and ancient race. They had fought wars for centuries, defending their planet from outsiders and from one another. Rumors spoke of a powerful artifact hidden somewhere in the planet's core, a weapon so strong it could destroy entire fleets. Humans had been sent here not only to survive, but to secure that power before it fell into the wrong hands. Had never believed in fate or destiny. He was a soldier, trained to follow orders and fight when necessary. But as he looked around at the glowing forest, he felt something unusual, an unshakable feeling that this mission would change everything. Movement caught his eye. At first he thought it was the wind, but then he saw a figure on a hill in the distance. She stood tall, almost like a statue, her silver hair catching the sunlight and making it glow. Her eyes were deep blue, piercing and sharp, yet filled with a quiet sadness. His heart skipped a beat. There was something about her, something powerful and untouchable. She was not just royalty, she was strength made visible, beauty and power combined in a way that stunned him. Before he could even think of approaching, his communicator buzzed urgently. Captain Ward, hostile movement detected, multiple targets approaching fast. His body reacted before his mind could process. He drew his weapon, his pulse quickening. Around him, the forest seemed to pulse with energy. And then he realized she, the princess, was watching him. Her eyes locked onto his, and for a fleeting moment, the noise of the forest, the alarms, the chaos of the landing, all of it disappeared. Had fought in countless battles, seen fear and death more times than he could count, yet in that moment he felt calm. There was a strange certainty in her gaze, as if she recognized something in him no one else had. Suddenly the ground shook violently. From the forest came a roar, a sound that shook and made the soldiers stumble. Massive creatures, unlike anything had ever seen, were charging toward them. Their skin was dark and scaly, eyes glowing with an eerie light. The soldiers opened fire, but the beasts moved with terrifying speed and precision. Then he saw her act. The princess leapt from the hill, landing gracefully in the path of the largest creature. A blade of glowing energy appeared in her hands, and she struck with power and precision that seemed impossible for her size. Froze, watching her. She was not a figure of diplomacy or royalty, she was a warrior. Each movement was confident, fierce, and beautiful, like a dance of power and skill. For the first time in his life, felt awe mixed with something deeper. He knew she was dangerous, unapproachable, and utterly untouchable. But he also felt a strange connection, a pull toward her that he couldn't explain. As the creatures fell one by one to her blade, made a silent promise to himself. No matter what happened on this alien world, he would survive. Not just for duty, but because he felt in some unspoken way that their paths were meant to cross. The battle was only beginning, but as stood there, gun in hand, and watched the alien princess in all her strength, he understood one thing clearly. This mission would be more than a war. It would be the beginning of a story he would never forget. And somewhere deep inside, he realized the truth that he would never admit out loud yet. He had already chosen to follow her wherever she led. The forest seemed to close in around the soldiers, the glowing grass and shimmering trees hiding dangers they could barely imagine. His heart pounded as he moved cautiously, his weapon ready. The creatures were not the only threat. Rumors told of warriors who could appear and disappear like shadows. He had no way of knowing if the princess he had seen earlier was friend or foe. But deep inside, he felt an unshakable certainty she was on their side. Then it happened. From the tree line, a group of warriors attacked. They moved with terrifying speed, their energy blades slicing through the air with a hum that made the hairs on his neck stand. His unit opened fire, bullets and laser rounds lighting up the violet sky, but the warriors dodged with almost unnatural agility. Dove behind a tree, narrowly avoiding a strike that could have ended him in an instant. A flash of silver caught his eye. Lyra had appeared again, descending from the hill with the grace of a predator. Her energy blade glowed brighter than ever, slicing through enemies with precision and power. Could hardly breathe. She was unstoppable, yet there was something in her eyes, a focus, a fire that seemed almost human. It was not just skill, it was determination, courage, and a sense of purpose that made his chest ache in admiration. He couldn't help but shout, "I've got your back," as he fired at the warriors near her. She glanced at him quickly, and for a brief second she nodded. That small gesture ignited something inside him, something beyond fear or duty. It was trust, a bond forming in the middle of chaos. Suddenly, a massive war beast charged from the shadows, larger than any of the soldiers had expected. Its claws were sharp as blades, and its roar shook the ground. His unit panicked, scattering in all directions. The creature lunged straight at him. He froze for a heartbeat, knowing there was no way he could stop it alone. Then Lyra was there. She leapt onto the beast, back with agility that seemed impossible, her blade piercing its armor. Sparks flew and the creature screamed, thrashing wildly. Ran to her side, firing repeatedly. Together, human strategy and alien strength combined. The beast fell, and silence settled over the clearing, broken only by ragged breathing. Lyra stood tall, her blade glowing, her chest heaving with controlled fury, approached cautiously, still in awe. You're incredible," he said, his voice shaking with both fear and admiration. She looked at him, eyes softening for the first time. "You fought well," she replied, almost whispering. "Not many humans would have survived this far into the forest. You are different." His pulse quickened. Different. That word from her lips felt like a key turning in a lock he didn't know existed. He realized that something was growing between them, an unspoken connection that neither the war nor the danger could break. The rest of the human soldiers regrouped, weary but alive. They had fought fiercely, but it was clear that without Lyra, none of them would have survived the first battle. His eyes never left her as she turned to face the forest, scanning for any remaining threats. She was both awe-inspiring and intimidating, a living force of nature. When the creatures finally retreated into the shadows, approached her again. "You saved us," he said quietly. "I don't know how to thank you." Lyra shook her head. "No thanks are needed, we fight for survival, and you impressed me." Her gaze lingered on him longer than necessary and felt warmth flood his chest. There was pride there, yes, but something else. Something he couldn't yet name, a spark that made him feel alive in a way no battle or mission ever had. As the sun dipped lower in its violet sky, realized the truth. This was more than a war. This was a beginning of a story he didn't yet understand, with a princess who had already marked him in ways that went beyond words. He knew that surviving this battle was only the first step. The real challenge, the one that mattered most, was surviving the future together. With battle had ended, but the forest of still hummed with life as if it were watching, waiting. And his unit regrouped near the edge of a glowing lake, its waters reflecting the violet sky. He sat on a rock, wiping sweat and grime from his face, still trying to process everything that had happened. Lyra's presence lingered in his mind, the way she moved, the way she fought, the quiet intensity in her eyes. He had never met anyone like her. As night fell, the forest glowed softly under the light of twin moons. Heard soft footsteps behind him. He turned to see Lyra approaching, her silver hair shimmering like liquid moonlight. There was no armor, no weapon, just her, vulnerable and human in ways he had not expected. She said softly, "May I sit?" He nodded, gesturing to the space beside him. She perched lightly on the rock, her gaze on the shimmering lake. For a long moment, neither spoke. The only sounds were the gentle hum of the forest and the distant calls of alien creatures. Finally, she broke the silence. "I have seen many warriors," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "Many who are strong, skilled, and unafraid, but you are different. You fight with something I cannot describe." Looked at her, trying to find words. "I don't know what makes me different. I just fight because I have to survive, that's all." Lyra turned to face him, her blue eyes reflecting the moonlight. "Survival alone is not enough. Humans fight for many things, hope, love, loyalty. You fight for more than yourself. I see it in your eyes." Her words struck him deeply. He had never imagined an alien, let alone a princess, would see him this way. A warmth spread through his chest, a mix of pride and confusion. I don't know what to say," he admitted. "You don't have to say anything," she whispered. "Actions speak louder than words, and your actions, they speak volumes." For the first time, felt a connection with someone beyond comradeship or duty. There was trust here, raw and unspoken. He realized he had begun to care for her, not just as a princess or a warrior, but as Lyra, a person who had seen something in him he didn't even recognize himself. Over the next few days, their bond grew. She would visit him at the edge of the camp, sharing stories of its history and its people. He told her about Earth, his home, and the battles he had fought. They laughed over small things, a human joke that made her smile, a clumsy step she almost missed in the glowing forest. One evening, as they watched the twin moons rise, asked quietly, "Do you ever feel trapped by who you are, by what everyone expects of you?" Lyra's gaze dropped to the glowing waters. "Every day," she admitted. "I am supposed to be a princess, a symbol, a weapon in my father's plans, but with you I feel like I can just be Lyra, not a warrior, not a princess, just me." Her confession hit him like a thunderbolt. He reached out instinctively, taking her hand. It was small, delicate, yet strong. "I feel the same," he said, his voice low. "With you I feel, I don't know, like I matter beyond being a soldier, like I'm part of something bigger." Lyra squeezed his hand, her eyes meeting his. "Then we are the same, two beings from different worlds, finding strength in each other." That night they sat in silence, hand in hand, the glow of the forest around them. Neither needed words, the bond was already formed. It was trust, understanding, and something deeper, something that neither the war nor the universe could easily break. Realized he had not just survived the first battle, he had survived something greater. He had found an ally, a friend, and perhaps, in time, something more. Lyra's soft voice whispered into the night, "I have seen many soldiers, but I have never seen one like you, and I think I never will again." Felt his chest tighten with emotion. The bond between them had been forged in fire and danger, but it was real and it was unbreakable. And in the quiet glow of night, he understood the truth. This was no ordinary mission. This was the beginning of a story that would change both their worlds forever. The calm of forest was deceptive, and Lyra had spent days bonding, learning to trust each other, and for a brief moment, it felt like the war had paused just for them. But peace on this alien world was fragile. Shadows moved where there should have been none, and the air hummed with tension. One night, while the camp slept under the twin moons, was woken by a scream that pierced the silence. It was Lyra. His heart leaped into his throat as he grabbed his weapon and sprinted toward the sound. The forest blurred around him, alien trees and glowing grasses flashing past as adrenaline surged through his veins. When he arrived, he saw her, trapped in an energy net, suspended above the ground. Two menacing figures, unfamiliar to him, stood beside her. They were members of the council, loyal to the old ways and opposed to Lyra's independent choices. They had decided to use her as leverage, as a pawn to enforce a marriage she did not want. Lyra's voice rang, fierce and defiant even in her restraint. "Leave me, you cannot fight them alone." He shook his head, teeth gritted. "I don't leave anyone behind, not you." The counselors laughed, cold and cruel, as if daring him to try. Didn't hesitate. He charged through the glowing undergrowth, using every skill he had learned on Earth and every tactic he had mastered as a soldier. Bullets and energy blasts flew past him, but he dodged, rolled, and pressed forward. His mind was only on one thing, saving Lyra. Lyra's eyes met his, wide and filled with emotion, fear, pride, and something else, a silent plea. Even trapped, she raised her hands and the air around her shimmered. Sparks of energy crackled, her strength fighting against the restraints. Realized that alone she could have broken free, but she was waiting for him, trusting him to reach her. He reached the net and began slicing it with his blade, every second stretching into eternity. The counselors attacked him relentlessly, but he moved with determination fueled by something beyond survival, something personal, something that mattered more than any mission. Finally, the last barrier fell. Lyra dropped gracefully to the ground, landing beside him, her energy blade already ready. Together, they faced the counselors. Strategy and Lyra's raw power blended seamlessly. Bullets met alien energy, movements were synchronized without words, and one by one, the attackers fell. When the battle was over, the forest fell silent again. His chest heaved with exhaustion, sweat and grime covering him. Lyra's blue eyes shone with a mixture of relief and gratitude. She reached out, brushing a streak of dirt from his cheek. "You came for me," she said softly, almost as if surprised. "I told you," he said, voice hoarse but steady. "I don't leave anyone behind, not even a princess." Her lips curved into a faint smile, something tender that he had never seen before. "You are, unlike any human I have met, courageous, stubborn, loyal." His heart skipped a beat. Loyalty. It was a word he understood deeply, but hearing it from her in this moment made him feel a connection stronger than he had ever known. He realized that trust between them had grown into something more profound, something that neither the council nor the war could destroy. For Lyra, the events of the night were a revelation. She had always been taught to rely on her own strength, to fight alone, to obey the rules of her world. But she saw something she had never believed possible, a human who would fight not for glory, not for orders, but for her. As they walked back to the camp under the violet sky, side by side, both of them knew the truth. The war around them would continue, and danger would return, but their bond had been tested and had survived. They had faced betrayal, faced death, and faced fear, and they had chosen each other in the process. Stole a glance at Lyra. Her eyes met his unwavering, and he understood the unspoken promise between them. Whatever came next, they would face it together. And for the first time, he felt that their story was no longer about survival alone. It was about loyalty, trust, and a bond that could change the course of their worlds. The palace was grand and imposing, its walls etched with symbols of centuries-old power. Followed Lyra through the towering halls, each step echoing with authority and history. The council had summoned her, and everyone knew the purpose. An arranged marriage to secure alliances that Lyra had never wanted. Her heart was heavy, but she walked with her usual grace, her silver hair catching the light of the hall. Stayed a step behind, cautious but unwavering. He had learned that no army, no strategy, and no human skill alone could save her here if she did not wish it. This was a different battlefield, one of politics, pride, and expectation. But he would stand by her side no matter the cost. The council chamber was filled with elders, their expressions a mix of curiosity, pride, and disapproval. They expected her to bow, to submit, to agree. Lyra paused at the center, her posture tall and unyielding. She let her gaze sweep over the assembly before speaking. "My father," she began, her voice clear and steady, carrying over the chamber. "I have been told whom I must marry. I have been told what my duty is, what my role should be. But I have seen courage, loyalty, and strength in someone unexpected. He is not just a soldier, he is my choice." A hush fell over the chamber. Shock rippled through the counselors, stood frozen at the doorway, unsure if he had heard correctly. Lyra's eyes met his across the distance, and he felt the weight of her words sink deep into his chest. "I choose him," Lyra continued, her voice rising, filled with determination. "Not for political gain, not for power, but because he has shown me the value of trust, of courage, and of love. He is mine." Gasps and murmurs echoed around the chamber. Some counselors were outraged, their faces red with anger and disbelief. Others looked on silently, their expressions unreadable, as if trying to process what had just occurred. But Lyra's stance never wavered. She did not bow, she did not falter. Felt his heart race. He had fought battles in forests, deserts, and alien cities, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. The gravity of her declaration, the courage it took to defy tradition, made him ache with admiration and awe. Slowly he stepped forward, his eyes locked on hers. "Lyra," he said, his voice steady despite the storm around them. I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," she replied, a soft smile gracing her lips. "Just stand with me, that is enough." Nodded, feeling a surge of pride and determination. He had survived countless battles, but standing here, in the palace of a proud alien race, beside the princess he admired and cared for, he felt more alive than ever. The counselors exchanged heated words, some demanding compliance, others pleading for compromise. But Lyra's father, the king, observed silently. There was disappointment in his eyes, yes, but also a glimmer of something could not read, perhaps respect for the strength his daughter had shown. Lyra turned to, her hand extended. "If you will have me," she said quietly, yet every word carried power, "I choose you." Reached for her hand without hesitation. their fingers intertwined, a physical promise of trust and loyalty. "I'd follow you anywhere," he said. "Through every battle, across every star, I choose you, Lyra." In that moment, the chamber seemed to hold its breath. The princess and the soldier stood together, unyielding, side by side. Their bond, forged in battle and strengthened by trust, had become stronger than any decree, stronger than tradition. And for the first time, realized something that had been building in his heart since the moment he first saw her on the hill. This was more than a war, more than a mission. This was a story of courage, love, and defiance, a story that neither the Council nor the galaxy could ever undo. Lyra's head held high, her eyes shining. She whispered softly to, "No matter what comes next, we face it together." Squeezed her hand. "Together," he echoed, and in that word lay a promise, a bond, and the unshakable truth that they were stronger as one than the universe could ever hope to be a party palace of, was no longer a place of quiet halls and golden light. Tension crackled like electricity as the counselors gathered, furious at the princess's defiance. They had expected obedience, a marriage that would secure alliances and respect for their centuries-old traditions. Instead, Lyra had chosen a human, a soldier they deemed weak, unworthy, and unpredictable. Stood beside her unwavering. He had faced countless dangers in his life, but nothing compared to this. These were not creatures to fight with bullets and strategy. These were minds honed by politics and power. Yet he did not falter. The bond he shared with Lyra gave him strength he had never known. "You will obey," shouted one counselor, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You cannot choose a human over your own people, princess." Lyra's eyes blazed. "I choose who I trust. I choose who stands beside me, not who is forced upon me. If you cannot understand that, then you do not understand me." The council erupted in anger, some attempting to seize her by force. But Lyra was ready. She raised her energy blade, its glow lighting the chamber, and moved with unmatched grace and power. Beside her, his hands were steady on his weapon. Together, they faced the council's enforcers. The clash was fierce. Humans and loyal fought in unison, blending strategy with strength. Moved through the chaos with precision, covering Lyra as she struck with energy blades and commanding movements that left enemies stunned. Every strike they made together was perfect, their bond evident in the seamless coordination of action. Lyra's voice rang out above the chaos, steady and commanding. "Stand back or face the consequences. I am not a pawn." His chest heaved with adrenaline and awe. This was the princess he had admired from afar, the one he had grown to trust and care for. She was not just royalty. She was a leader, a warrior, and now a symbol of rebellion against oppression. And he would fight beside her until the end. The battle raged on, the chamber echoing with shouts, energy blasts, and the clash of weapons. Even the counselors, most loyal enforcers, faltered under the combined strength of human courage and power. For the first time, they witnessed something unexpected. A human and a side-by-side, unstoppable. Finally, the council had no choice. Their enforcers lay defeated or retreating, their authority challenged by a force they had never anticipated. And Lyra stood together, breathless, bruised, and victorious. But the victory was more than physical. It was a statement, a testament to what trust, courage, and unity could achieve. Lyra turned to, her blue eyes shining with gratitude and something deeper, pride, respect, and a quiet affection. "You fought beside me, not because you had to, but because you chose to," she said softly. "I have never met anyone like you." Lowered his weapon, his heart pounding. "And I've never met anyone like you," he replied. "Not just a princess, not just a warrior, you are everything I've been fighting for." The council, though still fuming, had no choice but to recognize their victory. They had underestimated the bond between a human and an alien princess, the strength of a soldier who refused to leave her behind, and the courage of a princess who refused to be controlled. As the violet sky outside the palace turned to the soft gold of dawn, and Lyra stood together on the balcony overlooking. The twin suns rose, casting light on a world that had just witnessed a new era, one where courage and loyalty mattered more than tradition and fear. Lyra leaned on shoulder, her hand still in his. "Do you think the council will try again?" she asked quietly. He smiled, tightening his grip on her hand. They might, but we'll face it together, no matter what. And in that promise, stronger than any weapon, they knew the universe had just seen the power of unity between two worlds, and that their story was only beginning. The battlefield was quiet now. The council had retreated, their threats broken, their authority shaken. Its palace glowed in the light of the twin suns, casting golden reflections on the shimmering walls. And Lyra stood side by side, exhausted but victorious. The war was far from over, but in that moment they had won something far more important: trust, respect, and a choice of their own making. Lyra turned to, her silver hair flowing softly in the warm morning breeze. "Do you think it will ever be easy?" she asked, a small smile touching her lips. Shook his head, though he smiled back. "Easy? No, worth it every second." He reached for her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. Their touch was quiet, but it carried the weight of battles fought and victories earned, of hearts tested and trust forged. They walked through the palace gardens together, the soft glow of alien flora lighting their path. Soldiers and loyal watched with a mixture of awe and respect. They had witnessed a story unfold, of a human soldier who had refused to leave a princess behind, and a princess who had stood tall, defying tradition for what she knew was right. Lyra's blue eyes were thoughtful as she looked at him. "I never imagined someone from another world could understand courage the way you do," she admitted. "Or loyalty, or love." Felt his chest tighten. "And I never imagined I'd find someone worth fighting for, someone I'd risk everything for." His voice was steady but filled with emotion. "But I did, and I will every day from now on." For the first time, Lyra allowed herself to lean on him, resting her head lightly against his shoulder. In that simple gesture, there was more than affection. There was trust, unity, and a promise. They were not just soldier and princess. They were partners, equals, and a force that neither the council nor the universe could challenge. The people began to gather around them. Whispers spread through the palace. A human and the princess, side by side, standing for courage and love over tradition and fear. Realized that their story had become something larger than themselves. They were symbols of hope, proof that unity between worlds was possible, that bonds forged in loyalty and trust could defy even the strongest chains. Lyra looked out toward the horizon, the twin suns painting the sky in shades of violet, gold, and crimson. "Do you think we can build something better?" she asked quietly. Wrapped an arm around her shoulders, drawing her close. "We already are," he said simply. "Every choice we make, every battle we face together, it's building something stronger than any palace, stronger than any law. We're shaping a future that belongs to us, human and alike." A gentle breeze carried their words across the palace gardens, and for the first time in centuries, the halls felt alive with more than duty or tradition. They felt alive with hope. Lyra met his gaze, her eyes shining with determination and warmth. "Then we face whatever comes next, together." Squeezed her hand firmly. "Together," he echoed, and in that single word he meant it with every fiber of his being. Together they would face every threat, every challenge, and every obstacle that the galaxy could throw at them. Together they were unstoppable. As they stood there, side by side, the twin suns rose fully into the sky, casting light over a world that had witnessed courage, defiance, and the power of love. And Lyra looked out over, knowing that their story was only beginning, that the bond they shared would echo across stars and generations. She had stood tall, defying expectation. She had chosen him, and he had followed her, not out of duty, but out of loyalty, admiration, and love. In that moment, under the glowing skies of, two hearts from different worlds became one. And the universe itself seemed to pause, acknowledging the story of a human soldier and an alien princess, one of hope, courage, and humanity at its finest. "He is mine," Lyra whispered softly just for him. "And I am yours," replied. The twin suns shone brighter, and for the first time the future felt limitless.